Shalom, this is the midday moment. Want to take a moment to reflect on whatever's going on, various thoughts might have. This will kind of be a catch-all segment for this channel or page, whatever it's called, on whatever site or app you're watching this on, or perhaps listening to this on. Initially, it does stream on TikTok, will be reposted on at least 4 other apps or sites, sort of thing. So yesterday evening began something called Yom HaShoah, which is basically day of the catastrophe in Hebrew. Now there is a larger name for that, which would be translated as, I believe, day of the catastrophe and the heroism. But this is a national observance in the nation of Israel and among some people outside of the country. When we talk about the catastrophe, it's talking about the Holocaust. And, those that forget history are doomed to repeat it. And we are in a time where there are some very concerning things. You have what happened on October 7th. And when people want to talk about the war and such, I point out, October 7 happened. Nations have the right to defend themselves. Nations have the right to fight back when terrorists are murdering your civilians and doing other things that I'm not even going to mention. And right away, you do have people that are denying that these things happened or coming up with some sort of conspiracy theories about these various things. It shows you where we are. It shows you where we are. We're at a time where we have, just to be blunt, Jew hatred that is on the rise among people. What we call, with a little bit more, maybe not as blunt a term, but anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism, that should be abhorrent to us, despite how people try to parse that word down and say, well, other people are technically Semitic too. Okay, yeah, but words mean what they mean, and that word has, ever since it came into usage, has meant to hate people for being Jews. We see that on the rise. I would submit we have some softer versions of it, with people like Tucker Carlson trying to suggest that it's worse to be a believer in Jesus in Israel than it is in a nation like Qatar, which is not true to the facts. People like Candace Owens, who are suggesting the things that she is, that now using Jew and Jewish as adjectives and advocating works about Jews that are things that have been debunked for years, and this sort of thing that we see on the rise. People, these various podcasters and such, they're what they call the edgelords. They say something edgy, they're an edgelord, that are saying things about like that Hitler was really cool and such. Of course, the one I heard say that was not as clean in how he put that, but still, it's like, what? No, we are at a point where we need to remember that at one point in time, within the lifetimes of a few people that are still alive, now that generation is about gone, but still, you have people that were alive when they were systematically murdering 6 million Jews. And somebody might want to get into the details and that, say, well, technically they didn't directly murder them all. Some starved to death. And it's like, okay, well, that through this horrific evil regime, under this horrific evil man named Adolf Hitler, 6 million people died. And yes, there were others too. It was not just Jewish people. There were others that they wanted gone, that were not what the state wanted around. And so, yeah, there were others too. And some of the numbers I've seen of that, there was possibly, another 7 million that were killed too. But as far as one demographic, the largest demographic, You have several million Jews whose deaths are caused because somebody decided that they were a problem that needed to be done away with. And we live in a time when I've heard people basically say that, the Austrian painter had the right idea and that sort of thing. We live in a time where there is things being said and suggested that 20 years ago we would not have thought was the case. It used to be when people said anti-Semitism, like that was slanderous. It used to be most of the time when you said, well, somebody's anti-Semitic, you could pretty well guess that was not true, that it was just somebody using that to try to tarnish somebody, that, they disagreed with somebody that was Jewish, well, they must be anti-Semitic. We're not in that time anymore. Somehow, we have gone back. As a Christian, yes, if somebody is religiously Jewish, I and that person do not agree on Jesus. Now, you do have a discussion when it comes to the Messianic Jews. Many of them do believe that Jesus, obviously Messianic Jews, they do believe Jesus is Messiah, but even then we'd have doctrinal discussions that need to be had. But while you do have people that, for the most part, disagree with me religiously, the fact is most of the world does not accept Jesus as their Savior. Most of the world is not following Christ. And whether or not somebody accepts Jesus as Lord, I still have a mission in regards to that person. I'm still supposed to love my neighbor as myself. And even if that person is a caricature, let's say they fit the caricature of the Jewish person that has been suggested by some, because they'll say, they really hate you. They all hate you. They all really hate you. Most of them, I would say most of them are actually indifferent to my personal religious beliefs. But if you have one that really does fit the caricature, and all groups have their extremists. And so let's say you have an extremist Jewish person that, they want, that they're somehow a modern day Saul of Tarsus, Saul before he's Paul, and they want my belief system stamped out. What's my view towards them supposed to be? Matthew 5:44. They would, that person would be an enemy. I'm supposed to love them. I'm supposed to pray for them. I'm not supposed to hate them. So it would be good today to recognize there was a point in time in which horrific things were done to people because of their ethnicity, because they didn't even have to be a religious Jew to be put in those camps. We cannot forget. Obviously we are able to forget, but we should not. We must not forget what happened. And when you see this garbage that's going around the internet today, speak up. Now, don't do it from hate. Don't answer hate with hate. But speak up. Don't be afraid to tell people they're wrong. You have a good rest of the day. This has not been dealing with a pleasant subject, but something needs to be said today. You don't wish somebody like a happy Yom HaShoah. That's not how that works. It's not that kind of holiday. But take a moment today. Remember, I say it's not been a pleasant one today, but we need to deal with this. Lord willing, be with you here in a little bit with Tuesday tips, and shalom.